We are now on the third control structure. The third control structure is called loop, also known as iteration or repetition. The loop control structure also involves decision making, which is represented in a flowchart using the diamond symbol, the same as in the selection control structure. So there are two values. You have true or false. And then the difference between the loop control structure and then the selection control structure, these loops continuously loop as long as the condition is true. Otherwise, that will stop the loop. The next consideration here is you are going to initialize a value to a variable. Now, let's think of a counter. You have a counter, and then you can actually initialize that to either 0 or 1 to start the loop. And then we also have the update. So before it loops, it has to be updated. It's either incremental plus plus or decremental. So it's incrementing by 1 or decrementing by 1. Let us give an example for this structure. Let's say you're asked to display or output the following numbers on the screen. And these are 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. So as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers. So that will be the maximum loop iterations. Now that will be happening later. So let us start with the flow chart for this problem. So let us start with this oval symbol for start, followed by supposedly, basically, you have an input here. But in the problem, there's no input. It only says display. So you are going to display or output the following numbers on the screen. So we will not be needing an input symbol here. So instead, we're going to initialize, to put there the counter, to initialize your loop. Or another one is to set a certain variable for this value 10, so that we can be able to print 10 on the screen and then create a formula and then update loop until we will be able to output all the numbers on the screen. So let us start. So we can set again our counter. Let's say we think of a certain variable I for the counter, and let's say your I is equal to 1. Okay? And then initially, so as you can see, you put a comma here. No, initially you have there 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So let us start with the value 10. So we can actually set a certain variable x for that number 10. Okay? And then next, it's the decision now. So followed by this diamond symbol. So the decision will be, the condition will be, I has to be less than or equal to the maximum value of our iteration. And then that will be 5. So if it is less than or equal to 5, if it is true, what will be happening? So these are the statements. So let's say, since we already initialized here the value 10, and our intention is to output this on the screen, so let us make an output statement. Or let us draw an output symbol, which is a parallelogram, outputting the value of x. Followed by now, how are you going to compute for 20, 30, 40, and 50? Now, knowing that you have here the x, and then how are you going to make it or formulate a formula to make it 20, 30, 40, or 50? So you can just say x is equal to x plus 10, which again, the present value of x is 10, so plus 10, that will be 20, and then it loops. So therefore, our next symbol here is the processing symbol. Okay, so let's put the formula here. X is equal to x plus 10. So then we update before we loop. No, so we are going to increment I plus plus. Okay, that is the same thing as writing as I is equal to I plus 1. Okay, so after this update, so you can say I plus plus. After that update, then it loops. Go back to this condition. So again, as what I mentioned a while ago, this continuously loop until or as long as the value or the condition says true. Otherwise, it will go to this side, the false side, and then what will happen here? So there's nothing to be executed, so we can just simply here end it. Now, to know that our flow chart is correct, let us do the simulation. So to simulate this, so let us put the initial values. You have I is equal to 1 and x, which is equal to 10. Then, the first condition applies. So let's say this is our pass 1. Okay? Pass 1 says let's get the condition. I is less than or equal to 5. Our I is what? 1. So we can just say 1 is it less than or equal to 5. And then that is true. And then what will happen? Let's go to the true side. Then it says here output x. Output x. So we are going to output the value of x. And what is the value of x? So you have there 10. So let us create a box for the output. So let's say here 10. Then after that, what is the next instruction? The next instruction says x is equal to x plus 10. Then you apply the value of x, which is 10 plus 10. Then you have there x is equal now to 20. That is the present value of 20. So what is the next instruction? It says there update I. So I is equal to I plus 1. So the present value of I is 1 plus 1. So I now becomes 2. And then as you can see, look at the arrow. Okay, so it connects to the condition again. So meaning, let's say another pass. Let's call that pass 2. And then it will go to the condition I is less than or equal to 5. So I is equal to 2. Is it less than? Yes, it's true. Then we can go to the true side. X, outputting x, the value of x is 20. Then we put here 20. Next condition or next instruction is x is equal to x plus 10. So the value of x is 20 plus 10. X now is equal to 30. And then the next instruction says increment I. So increment I. So I is equal now to 2 plus 1. So you are now having 3. Then we go back to the condition. This is now pass 3. Then we test what is the value of I, which is 3. We test if it is less than or equal to 5. And then, of course, that is true. Okay, and then, since this is true, then we proceed to the instructions. Okay, so the following instructions under the true. So you have there x will output the value of x, which is 30. Now let us output 30. Then, next instruction is x is equal to x plus 10. What is x? 30 plus 10, that becomes now 40. And then next instruction is I is equal to, this time it's 4. 3 plus 1 is 4. Then we go back to the loop, to the condition that is now past 4. So let's say 4, is it less than or equal to 5? If that is true, okay? And then we proceed to the instructions under the true. So we have x is equal to 40 already. Output that. Now output the x. So we output 40. And then what is the next instruction? X is equal to x plus 10. So 40 plus 10 is equal now to 50. Now, again, increment I now is equal to 5. Then we loop. So we are now at past 5. Then go to the condition. 5 is less than or equal to 5. So that is still true because 5 is equal to 5. And then the next instruction, let's say x will output the value of 50. So let us put here 50. Then x followed by the next instruction saying x is equal to x plus 10. So you have 50 plus 10. And then incremented the I. This is now 6. Then it goes back. Here, I now is equal to 6. Is 6 less than 5? So the answer is false. So that's the end of the flow chart. So we can now able to display 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Now if this is in a program, so you can see this on the screen. And what are the programming statements under the loop control structure? Number 1 is the for loop. Syntax, for, then inside the parentheses, you have there the first segment here, it's initialization. Let's use init, then semicolon, then there is the condition, and then semicolon, and then for the updates. So this is actually the structure, and then up for the for loop, and inside this are the statements to be executed under the for loop. Next is the while loop. Syntax, you have while, then the condition inside the parentheses, then whatever instructions or statements under this begin and end, that will be executed. Otherwise, outside the while loop, that will be all statements outside the while loop will be executed. Then the third one is the do while loop. So we have there the syntax. So do the following. So you have there begin, and then statements. So whatever statements inside the do while, that will be executed. And then this end curly brace, followed by the while reserve word, and then condition. So whatever condition inside, then followed by semicolon. Number 4 is the for each loop, which is commonly used in array. This is actually an enhanced for loop. Which is again commonly used in array. Array is a data structure. It's a fundamental data structure in programming, so which stores multiple values of the same data type. So we'll be talking about array in my next video or videos to come. Now, the syntax for this one is you have there for, then you have the data type, then space, then you have there the variable name, colon, and then followed by the array name. So meaning for each element in the array, and then begin whatever instructions inside the curly braces that will be executed. And these are the programming statements under the loop control structure. So stay tuned to the Applied Intelligence channel for more tutorial videos to come. I'll be presenting programming exercises for each control structure, such as sequence, selection, and loop control structure. Again, Applied Intelligence, where intelligence is applied, not just learned.